Hello and welcome everyone to We'll Be Right Back, the future of hospitality. On We'll Be Right Back, we interview people from every corner of the service and hospitality industry, as well as representatives from organizations providing relief and resources as we learn how to manage and settle into this new reality after COVID-19. I am your host, Greg Tilton. I am joined today by Susan Zemanick, owner and chef of Zasu over on Carrollton. Y'all might be familiar with it. Amazing menu, amazing spot, very cozy. And she's here to talk to us today about her experience with COVID-19 and the future of Zasu. So Sue, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your fine establishment?
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me, Greg. We opened up Zasu Restaurant, 127 North Carrollton Avenue, a little bit over a year ago. And we're really excited to be in Mid-City, and we were hoping to have another great year. And then all of this happened.
So Sue, can you tell us a bit about those initial weeks leading up to shelter in place and your decision to shutter, of course, temporarily, Zasu?
Well, leading up to the COVID-19 situation that we're all in right now, we saw a lot of reservations being canceled, and we were noticing that our numbers were dropping very quickly. So once the mayor put in place the stay at home and closed the restaurants down for regular service, we tried to do takeout for a couple of days. We had already had our inventory and our regular menu food in house, so we tried to do Zasu's food to go. And after 2 days, we realized that it really wasn't worth us coming in, preparing the food, and not knowing how many people were going to order Zasu to go that night. So we decided as a restaurant, as a group, that for the safety of our staff and for our diners to shut our doors for a couple of weeks to kind of regroup and see how everything was going to play out.
Yeah, you also mentioned there were some unique challenges with your menu specifically. I think you said that, quote, it doesn't travel well, that you have this very fine dining, very great experience. And there was, aside from, of course, concern for your staff, concern for the number of reservations coming in. Is this efficient? Is it good business? You seemed concerned with being able to even transport the Zasu experience.
Well, quality of our food is very important to us. And we are a very seafood heavy restaurant. And I don't really think that fish tastes good an hour after it's been cooked. So, we decided that maybe we should go back and kind of rethink our menu. But it takes a lot because we put so much energy into creating this menu to begin with. So it was just hard to see our food going out to go without knowing how long it was going to be sitting out in the car, put in the refrigerator and not eaten for a couple of hours. So we were worried that the quality would decline.
Sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We all know there's certain places we would never order food from, or we would at least think twice about, less because of the quality of the food and more just, as you said, different food travels differently. I know personally, I have a lot of trouble ordering pho from Vietnamese places. I don't like reconstructing pho.
No. There's just something about those noodles an hour later that just don't taste right.
And obviously, that was a very difficult decision, but I know we talked about kind of the unique challenges Zasu faces in that regard. You have to deal with the fact that you're in a smaller space than a lot of others. Your kitchen is smaller. The restaurant is more intimate. That's probably a better word for it. And in the era of social distancing, in which I think while no one can predict the future, we all feel pretty confident thinking that moving forward, people are going to be very concerned with personal space, especially in public venues. So tell me a bit about this thoughts that have been going into that. Right? I know we hashed it out a little bit before.
Well, our restaurant's very small. We only have about 52 seats. And the tables they're not super close together, but they're close enough that if we did do social distancing in the dining room, we'd probably only have about 3 or 4 usable tables. And we have a little bit of an outdoor space, enough for a 4-top. And other than that, it's a tiny little restaurant. We have a very small kitchen. To be 6 feet away from each other would mean that we only have 2 people in the kitchen.
Yeah, and I know you also said this raised interesting challenges for the teams, right? You would have your person serving water, you'd have people doing bread and butter, you'd have your table captains, right? And you talked about having to possibly even pare down teams, right?
I mean, I think if we only had 3 or 4 tables in the restaurant at once, we would probably only have one server to run the entire dining room. And just to, and have people not interacting as much with each other, I couldn't see having a food runner or someone pouring water or even a sommelier coming to your table to discuss the wine options.
Are you currently planning around those search situations? What are you kind of doing to preempt or address that? Are you rethinking Zasu's menu? Are you rethinking the space? I know the kitchen, you said 2 people in the kitchen, no matter what scale operation you're running, that sounds like a challenge.
It does create a lot of challenges for us, and we've been having to think outside the box. And every day we come up with new ideas. I mean, obviously, Zasu is going to be a to go restaurant when we do reopen. And if we do have people in the dining room, it's going to be very limited. So we're just trying to come up with some creative ways to keep everyone or to actually bring everyone back and to see what the role for certain people might be. Job titles might change, responsibilities might change, and we're just trying to work it all out.
So, what are you doing to kind of preserve the Zazu experience? Are you fundamentally rethinking what Zazu is going to be? Like, is this no longer going to be the sit down, fish forward restaurant that you had initially?
So we are definitely rethinking the menu. Obviously, some of our signature dishes are not going to travel well, so those won't be available. But we're trying to come up with some new options for people. We're thinking of doing themed weekly meals, more of a family style to go for pickup, and maybe considering some delivery in the future as well.
That's really interesting. I mean, my sister and I, actually, the time of this recording, we've just released an episode with my co-producer and sister, and she talked a lot about this, the challenges as restaurants are thinking of their reopening. The normal is gone, and a lot of restaurants, and it seems like you're definitely in this space, are having to think not how do we do what we did before, but how do we provide the Zasu experience, but in a completely new way. I mean, is it the dishes? Is it the people? Is it the space? What are the core elements that make it what it is? And how do you best prepare yourself to move forward? I mean, these must be really difficult decisions and difficult conversations you're having.
Well, I'm having these conversations a lot with myself in the middle of the night, um, just because there's always things are always changing and we don't know what the future holds. And I know that we spoke about this briefly, but I'm wondering, is fine dining dead? Like, how are we going to create that experience of hospitality without having someone greet you at the door, someone come over and take your drink order, make you feel at home and welcome, talk you through the menu items? I really feel like that personal, hospitality feel that we love to give to our customers is not going to be there anymore. It's going to be a lot more internet driven, ordering online, emails, phone calls. And I'm going to miss that aspect of fine dining and just taking care of our guests.
Just the cultural shift we're going to see in personal space after COVID-19 is going to have an impact on the very concept of fine dining. And I do think whether it's changed or whether it becomes incredibly rare to see anymore, yeah, I think that's a very potential threat. Do you see any good alternatives coming out of this? Do you think there's a lot of potential for maybe new avenues of dining experiences?
I haven't seen those yet. I'm not really sure what the future holds. I'm just my background is fine dining and I love the idea of grab and go and picking up and delivery. But I just love going to a restaurant and having someone take care of me. How are people going to celebrate their birthdays, their anniversaries? I mean, people have been proposed to at the restaurant. They've created memories here. And now those memories are going to be boxed up and taken out by a delivery person or picked up on the curb. I just don't really see a lot of positive things coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think suffice to say, the restaurant space is completely altered here, and what's going to preserve and what's going to, or what rather, what's going to persevere and what's going to change. While we can't predict it, it does sound like, unfortunately, Zasu is going to change in ways that maybe you are not very excited about.
No, things are definitely going to change, and I'm willing to pivot and figure this out. But at the same time, we've only been open for a year, and I was really looking forward to creating memories for people in the space that we worked so hard to design and menus that we've come up with and having a great bartender who makes killer cocktails. I just don't know what the future is going to hold for us.
Well, I guess kind of on that vein, what do you kind of hit some of your predictions. What do you think is going to kind of be the new normal? I mean, do you think that the social distancing culture is here to stay? Do you think that when a vaccine comes out or some sort of, reasonable level of treatment, are we going to return to some maybe reduced fine dining, or do you really feel that it's out the door?
I really think everything is depending on finding a vaccine. I think if we can get a vaccine and get enough of them out there, then I think fine dining might come back, but I think it's going to be at least a year, if not longer.
Sure, a slow return to some semblance of what that was before, a slow return kind of to being comfortable in that space, having people in your space and being around other tables and kind of the typical cacophony that is a busy, fun restaurant.
Exactly.
So where do you think the restaurant industry should move forward as an industry? What do you think people should take away from your experience? I mean, obviously, like you said, it's very hard for a new restaurant. You're a year out. It takes a while for restaurants to really get their momentum going. What are some takeaways?
Well, I think now, after going through Katrina and experiencing what it's like to have a hurricane, destroy, or levees breaking, destroy your city and holding us back for a really long time, I think that all we can do now is learn from this experience and try to prepare for something like this happening again, which I hope never happens again, but maybe finding a way to generate more revenue and save up a little, security fund just in case this happens. And also being really smart about ordering, staffing, just kind of living paycheck to paycheck, if you will, as opposed to putting all of your eggs in one basket and hoping for the best. I think restaurants in New Orleans really count on this time of the year where it's Jazz Fest and it's busy season. And a lot of us depend on this time to get us through the summer. So I just think being a smarter business person is what I'm going to take from this and try to learn from this experience.
Is there anything else you want to discuss in particular? Any other things about Zasu or about your community?
Well, I think we really need to come together for everyone in the hospitality industry. We are out here, risking our lives and other people's lives. And I think it's important that people keep their social distancing. We wear masks. We be, hyper diligent about cleanliness and sanitizing stations. And I just think we need to be really responsible and also show, respect on the receiving end of takeout food or delivery food, and just being, conscious of the people that are creating these meals for you. I think it goes both ways.
Absolutely. I mean, we think a lot about our community and about our proximity to each other, not endangering certain people, but are the people who are interacting the most with unknowns, as we know this disease, it's not always clear who's carrying it, who may or may not be showing symptoms. It can incubate for a long time. And so our emergency workers and the people who are preparing and delivering food are very heavily exposed. Even your curbside pickups, right? You go by Urban South Brewery, those people are standing there with stuff over their faces and gloves and handing off beers to people. Or you go order from Pythian Market and they drop off food, and Uber Eats even. And I think you're right. We need to be so cognizant that if you slack off a little bit, or you don't show them appreciation, or you don't tip them, they're doing this over and over and over again for all of us.
Exactly. And
just so we don't have to go to the grocery store and cook for ourselves.
I know. Well, everyone is probably sick of cooking right now. So we're here and happy to start making some food for you.
So what about the front of house? How do you see that being altered by the current situation and the stuff we might carry over after this pandemic?
Well, I'm very concerned about the front of the house of all restaurants in New Orleans and all over the world. Those people really depend on interacting with the guest and making them feel like they're having a great experience, and their livelihood depends on those tips. And without having diners in the dining room, I'm concerned about how they're going to make ends meet and how their roles in the restaurants are going to change. I'm not sure that they really thought that they would end up being delivery drivers, or thought that they would be standing outside with a mask on, handing food to people as they go by. Same thing with bartenders. They're behind the bar making cocktails for multiple people at the same time, and they rely on those tips as well. So I just want everyone to keep those people in mind and in their hearts, and see if they can, help them out in some way.
Yeah, I can only imagine it's going to be difficult after, because even if we return to some quote unquote normal looking restaurant atmosphere again, the consensus seems to be it's going to be lower capacity. Just most places are not going to go back to the same capacity, which means you're not going to need the same number of personnel. And I think that's going to be very tough on a city like ours, which is so hospitality driven, so many people in it. To just see any sort of choke on the jobs a little bit there is a little daunting. And I'm with you. Look out for those people. Take good care of them.
Overtip.
Overtip. Absolutely. No such thing as overtipping.
No, there isn't.
So, Sue, is there anything else you'd like to cover? Do you feel good?
I feel good.
We really appreciate you coming on. I know this has been a very difficult time for you and a difficult time for your restaurant. Everyone's having to work hard to make this work, and we just really appreciate all you're doing, and we really hope to see Zasu open again. And I look forward to seeing the innovative solutions you come up with.
Me too.
So without further ado, do you have any shameless plugs? Where can we find Zasu? Where can we find you?
Oh, well, you can find us on Instagram at Zasu Nola, and you can find our website at www.zasunola.com. You can check in for updates and see what we're up to.
Awesome. Well, Sue, thank you again so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time, and we hope to have you on again under better circumstances.
Great. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you so much for listening to We'll Be Right Back, the future of hospitality. Each episode, we will be highlighting a different organization contributing to the relief effort here in New Orleans. This episode, we would like to highlight Chef's Brigade. Chef's Brigade is a collection of New Orleans restaurants, chefs, and servers feeding healthcare workers and first responders while financially supporting our independent restaurants, culinary talent, and service industry. To contribute to the cause and learn about this amazing initiative, head to chefsbrigadenola.org. We have a link in the show notes. Again, that's chefsbrigadenola.org. We'll Be Right Back is produced by me, Greg Tilton. My co-producers are Barry Schwartz of My House Events and Elizabeth Tilton of Oyster Sunday. Barry and Elizabeth are offering incredible resources and services during this time through their New Orleans-based businesses, as well as collecting and sharing various initiatives by other individuals and organizations. All of these are linked in the show description, so please make sure to check them out. You can follow us on Twitter for the latest updates and to let us know what's up, @RightBackNola. Please also consider leaving a review for us on whatever podcast platform you fancy. It helps us know what you think, and it helps people find the show. Our cover art was created by Eugenie McClellan. Our show's music was produced by Sarisu. We have links to their work in the show notes, so give them some love.